Kamalism has arrived, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other things going on from this last week. All right, here we go. So, under pressure now from the past couple weeks, Kamala Harris has refused to answer any questions of the media and not really even host a press conference, and really hasn't taken any time to lay out her platform, her current platform. So, apparently everything she'd campaigned on from 2020 is null and void, and apparently she's not a part of the current administration unless something good has happened. For instance, the $100 million that has been earmarked for cancer research. Kamala Harris was an integral part of it. It was the Biden-Harris campaign, but when when there was some sort of negative news, it's never the Biden-Harris campaign. It's just the Biden administration, right? So you know, semantics, right? She's only a part of the good stuff, not a part of the bad things. So neither here nor there. However, so now she has to lay out her campaign, and what's been great is up to this point, Trump's whole thing is that he's been able to try to say, this is what she's about. This is what she's about. He's kind of screwed that up, right? He screwed the pooch. He had a really good opportunity to really paint her in a light that she already painted herself back in 2020. And instead, he fiddled around with stupid nicknames and a bunch of other crap that didn't really matter, right? And we ended up with just kind of wasted time and wasted effort. We'll see if it's hurt him. It's hurt him bad, right? Like, I mean, the polls show it, right? Harris is leading in the general election total nationally by about 2.5 points, according to 538. And then she's picked up a lot of ground in a lot of the battleground states. So, but they're all within margin of error. You figure 2.5 points is roughly margin of error for all of these polls. But that being said, um, if the momentum continues, then it's going to be a little tougher for Trump to make up the difference. The big difference is going to be what happens in fundraising in the near term. We know that Harris has a major war chest, and they're going to be able to capitalize on that. But in the meantime, what is finally happening is she's being called to present her actual platform, and little parts of it are leaking out. Right? We went over a little bit about how she stole Trump's deal with the taxes on tips, which is really kind of a dumb policy in general. Like, it's not it's big deal to certain people, but is it really going to move the needle for nationally? Probably not, right? So it doesn't really make sense that's going to be some sort of major policy mover. However, it's a point of contention because both candidates now are supporting it. However, the next tidbit came out though at a campaign event this week. Harris discussed the high price of groceries, right? And let's listen to that.
And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food. My plan will include new penalties for opportunistic companies that exploit crises and break the rules, and we will support smaller food businesses that are trying to play by the rules and get ahead. We will help the food industry become more competitive because I believe competition is the lifeblood of our economy. More competition means lower prices for you and your families.
All right, so that sounds all good and well, right? So, oh yeah, we're gonna impose price gouging federal law in order to make sure that big companies aren't taking advantage of you, and that's actually going to increase competition because it's going to allow smaller companies and smaller food suppliers to be more competitive. Okay, that's the bill of goods you're being sold, right? Price gouging laws by any other means is just price control, right? You can't put lipstick on a pig and tell me that the bacon's going to change, right? So that's the reality of this. So Catherine Rampel is a opinion author for Washington Post, and she wrote an article that says, when your opponent calls you communist, maybe don't propose price control. And this kind of got some run. It's Washington Post is obviously not is one of the bootlicking uh, entities, media entities that loves Kamala Harris, and they're pushing her across the finish line. But this may have been a bridge too far for even some of the folks inside the fold. So CNN had Catherine on and did an interview with her, and she discusses really what she was pointing out, that is the problem with this price control shtick, right, or this price gouging shtick, and that it's really just another name for price control. So here's Catherine on CNN.
Catherine, I read your piece and I heard you just mention it. The federal ban on price gouging for groceries. You are skeptical of this. Why?
Well, first of all, nobody can explain what price gouging means. It's like that old line about pornography. I know it when I see it, in the sense that what does it mean to have an excessive price or an excessive profit margin? That seems to be shorthand for a price or a profit margin that bugs me. That seems too high.
Okay, stop it right here. We're going to get into the rest of this clip in a minute, but this is the whole point, right? They're trying to go ahead and collate price gouging and price control. They're not the same thing according to the Harris campaign, and that's really what this whole thing. This should be target number one for the Trump campaign to glom onto, and he's done it. He's already started. We saw the commie Kamala nickname come out. Kamalism has been trending on Twitter. There's all sorts of nicknames that are coming out. This is what they should have been doing weeks ago when she came out. We knew all this stuff about Kamala Harris, and the general public just didn't know it yet. And so now, we've missed our opportunity. But here Kamala Harris comes. Hey, here you go. This is what she's so bad. She's such a bad candidate, and this is the whole thing. She's really a bad candidate, and she's been given so much media cover that she's been able to skate this past 3 weeks without blowing it. But even the media is saying, "Whoa, pump the brakes a little bit. This is kind of a little bit too much." We'll finish the rest of this interview with Catherine.
So, it's very hard to pin down what this would actually mean. If you look at the legislation that, as I mentioned, is already in the Senate, led by Senate Warren and Senator Bob Casey and a slew of others, the particular way that this is written, which is likely to be the template for any proposal that Harris would eventually embrace, is especially bad in that it just bans excessive prices, grossly excessive prices, grossly excessive profit margins, and says that the Federal Trade Commission can use any metric it deems appropriate to decide what that would mean, which basically says, like, it's not going to be markets, it's not going to be supply and demand that's determining how much your grocery store charges you for milk or for eggs. It's going to be some bureaucrat in DC, which seems like totally unworkable, first of all, for the FTC to be deciding like how much Kroger charges for eggs in Michigan. But it also would be very bad for markets. We've seen this kind of thing tried in lots of other countries before: Venezuela, Argentina, the Soviet Union, et cetera. It leads to shortages. It leads to black markets. Plenty of uncertainty. And beyond that, the specific way this bill is written might actually increase prices because of some of the other language in it. Things like requiring public companies to disclose in their quarterly reports, their quarterly earnings reports, how they're setting prices, which is a great way to help them collude, which normally we don't want them to do. So anyway, the devil's in the details, I guess, for that bill, but it's really hard for me to imagine any form of legislation that preserves the spirit of what she's proposing that would not be, at best do nothing, at worst cause a lot of harm.
All right. So the doom and gloom for the Trump campaign up to this point has been, it's done. And then Kamala Harris says, price gouging bill, which is basically price control. And here comes the whole article out on WAPO and this interview with CNN. And he goes, here's your opening. Here's the opening for the Trump campaign. Jump all over this, right? Jump all over this. The best part is they weren't done proposing policies like this. The next lineup from Kamala Harris was that they need to increase affordable housing, okay, by building 3 million new housing units. How's the government going to get involved in building 3 million new housing units? Oh, they said they're going to give everybody, first-time home buyers, $25,000 just on your down payment assistance. $25,000. Buying a new home, first time? Here's $25,000. Go buy a new home. Okay, let's see, how did that work when they did the tax credit, or not the tax credit, but the assistance credit for buying an EV? $3,000. Oh, that's right. All the prices of the vehicles went up by $3,000 each. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So this isn't going to change. It's going to be the exact same scenario. And people telling you otherwise, like Mark Cuban on all over X, are full of it. They're full of shit. They don't know what they're talking about. The reality is that is not. Anytime the government goes ahead and puts money into an industry as part of helping assistance and buying it, it just raises the price of it automatically. There's no way they can control that, anything other than that is a lie. It's a straight up lie. And this is the opening. This is the opening. Trump campaign. Dive right in, right? So, are we going to see that? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, he's already speaking a little bit to it, right? It should be pretty obvious. It's all over Twitter right now, or X right now. The people are blowing up the Kamala Harris campaign, but we'll see if that's where they go with this. I personally am not exactly um, sanguine. I'm far less sanguine to the idea that the Trump campaign will do the right thing right now. Instead, they'll probably take the attention off of her he'll probably take the attention off of her in this whole debacle by doing something silly like canning everybody in his campaign just so he can get his way, and which will just effectively move this memory hole, this entire scenario where they're talking about poor, really terrible and dangerous, even like I said, potentially dangerous policy, right? And that's probably what's going to happen, right? Trump campaign will bring the attention back onto themselves by saying they're doing something stupid, and that's been the ebb and flow. Kamala Harris does something, we have an opportunity. Oh, let's just slam the door shut again, screw this up for ourselves, right? So that's what we've done. Will that be the case? I don't know. All right, we're gonna take a quick little break. We'll be back. All right, we're back. Had to take a little breather there, but all the Kamala Harris stuff aside, there's still other down ballot elections going on, and I think and I continue to kind of come back to down ballot because the whole reason that the Kamala Harris swap happened when they took Joe Biden out behind the barn and they old yellered him was because they were worried about the down ballot races. Everybody in the Senate and the House had turned on Joe Biden, and they were ready to throw him out, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right? They were done with him because all these elections were potentially in jeopardy because it wasn't exciting the base, it wasn't bringing people out, and so they had to bring in Kamala Harris. Right? And they thought, okay, maybe that'll help solve the problem. We'll be able to continue with down ballot races. We may not win the presidency, but that's okay because, you know, we'll bring more people out and help win these down ballot races. So it's been very beneficial, and it actually worked out a lot better than they thought. I guarantee most Dems did not expect this rollout to work out as well as it did. It helps when you have Praetorian Guard and the media basically running, lead blocking you all the way in, right? I mean, it's for lack of a better term, it's a lead block all the way to the end zone, right? For her, that's the entire goal. So in the few moments that the media does slip up and they allow the Trump campaign an opening, they should take Trump needs to take advantage of it if he wants to have a shot at this race, right? And by no means, I make this clear, have I been a fan of the way that Trump's handled any of this. And there's a lot of things I dislike about him. However, I truly believed in the far leftism of Kamala Harris being the problem. Now, that being said, there are two people that I routinely cannot deal with. I cannot find a shred of redeeming quality for these two people in and out, year over year, every single statement. There's not a single shred of redeeming quality. Number one is Adam Schiff. Okay, as a Californian, it should be pretty obvious. Adam Schiff is easily the most detestable person alive in California. I cannot stand him. I hate Gavin Newsom, but I really cannot stand Adam Schiff. He is the worst. Okay, he's going to end up winning the Senate seat probably in California. I know that's coming. It sucks. It's the way California works. We're going to bring this guy on. He's detestable, but we got Feinstein passed away, so now we get to bring in an absolute idiot in Adam Schiff. But sure, fine, whatever. The other person that I cannot stand is Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is literally done more damage to the GOP in the last 2 years, probably 3 years, than anybody else in the GOP, including Trump himself, right? Trump, I think, has destroyed a lot of the infrastructure of the GOP party as a winning mechanism. Matt Gaetz may be number one. Maybe he's up there. They're up there with each other for combating each other, for destroying the infrastructure of the GOP. And no one has done it worse timing than Matt Gaetz. The whole Matt Gaetz following is an absolute travesty. His whole thing claiming to be a pro-Trumper, da, 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 and he gloms onto this. It's really just a fundraising gimmick for him to stay in office and stay in front of people. Go look at his all the stupid plastic surgery he's gotten. He looks terrible now. He sounds like an absolute idiot. All of his little fundraising campaigns all sound the same. Matt Gaetz, with his whole Kevin McCarthy ousting business, really did it in for the GOP this year. I firmly believe it. The House had some semblance of unity going on after once they finally got Kevin McCarthy, and because of Matt Gaetz' holdup, it made us look stupid, right? It made us look unable to govern, and Dems jumped on it. They, hey, never stop your opponent when they're making a mistake. Matt Gaetz was the first person to do that, right? Just because it's some small differences. And here's the thing: you may not like all of Kevin McCarthy's policy, right? You may not think that he's what you want as the Speaker of the House at the time, but the problem is Kevin McCarthy may waffle on a couple of smaller items, things that don't matter. And this is my whole problem with the MAGA side and the Matt Gaetzes of the world, is that even though they can waffle, and it's incrementalism that we understand, is they'll waffle on smaller bills that are not consequential, but when it comes to things that really do matter, things like working on true conservative values like an abortion, or working on other social issues like dealing with transing of the children, right? Or other crazy spending sprees that we don't need to be dealing with, right? Those key issues, Kevin McCarthy fights back on, right? He was always going to fight back on that. He's a conservative, but he understands the incrementalism approach. We don't have the executive, we don't have power in the executive branch. We don't have the Senate. All you have is the power of the House, and you have a real thin majority in there as it was. So you had to pick and choose your battles in order to win what you could. And if you kept things as status quo for 4 years, and you kept Joe Biden's craziness and now the Kamala Harris shows craziness on the sidelines for 4 years, you did your job. But instead, we had to go through the circus that Matt Gaetz propagated and started with Marjorie Taylor Greene, another not great person for the GOP. Matt Gaetz started with Marjorie Taylor Greene and basically make the GOP look worse than it did. And because of that, the consequence even though the GOP got voted in the House and had a real tight race in the Senate this last in the 2022 cycle, now they're actually receiving a lower approval rating than Democrats in the House and the Senate. Okay, so we're probably susceptible to losing the House and the Senate, all because of all the Matt Gaetz's BS, right? And he deserves everything that happens to him. Matt Gaetz has an election, his primary on Tuesday in Florida. That's going to tell us a little bit more about what the GOP party really wants to see going forward. If we see Matt Gaetz win in a landslide, it's going to tell me that that core 25% of the MAGA GOP party is still in power of a lot of these smaller regions, a lot of the most vocal people, right? The Matt Gaetzes, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, that's our Ilhan Omar, that's our that's our AOC. Those are the same, they're the equivalent, right? They're just the two most ridiculous and loud parts of the party, and they're the ones that do the most damage to your party. If you can get them to shut up and just do what they're supposed to do and actually govern, maybe be productive. But instead, you have to work around them and being a circus act, right? And they just use it for fundraising. That's the whole thing. So if there's a way that Matt Gaetz gets pushed out of office in this primary, it would go a long way to serving the GOP's agenda going forward, right? It would say a lot about what the direction of the GOP really looks like for the entire nation. Is it going to change? I don't know. I mean, Gaetz has been there for a while, right? People like him. I can't see why. He's detestable too. He's the Adam Schiff in my mind. I think he's a piece of shit. I don't really want to deal with him anymore. But here we are. We gotta deal with what we got to deal with, right? Other than that, I haven't really. I'm not sure what else is coming up later on this week. Obviously, there's surprises every single day. We'll review them as they come up, but that's all I have this and recap this time on At My Garage again. Hope to see you next time on AMGA. I'm Daniel Samarin. See you later.